thanks for tuning in. This time around I'm going to show you a kit bash that I did for a contest where we had to make a Munster truck. I decided I wanted a Munster truck, so I took the Munster's Koach and the USA-1 Munster Truck and melded them together. There's just some modifications, slight modifications to the Munster Koach and a few to the USA-1 truck. So anyway, let me clear this out. We'll get a blank slate. I can bring out the things and show you the modifications that it took to make this happen. See you in a bit. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let me show you the kits that you're going to need. Most obviously, you're going to need the Munster Koach. If you don't have one of these, or if you've got one and you don't want to use it for this project and you want to find another one, you can also use the Graveyard Ghoul Duo. It's doesn't have the Munster or George Barris branding. It's probably the better way to go if you got to sacrifice a kit. It comes with both cars, the Koach and Dragula, and you may want the Dragula for the next Munster truck I'm going to show you, because I built one out of the Dragula also. Or you could pick up a glue bomb or something off of eBay, or a partial kit. You only need the body and the interior. The chassis you don't need the tires and wheels, you don't need the engine. All you really need off the engine are the exhaust headers. So if you can get all the body stuff and the exhaust headers, you'll have everything you need to do this. Then the second one you'll need is a Munster truck. And I used the USA-1 Chevrolet. And at the time, these were all over the place. I was picking these up at Hobby Lobby. I think they were like $19, and if you had the 40% coupon, so that was pretty reasonable for something that you're just going to use part of. Later, after this was discontinued, I think it was issued fittingly as a Munster's version. I think there was two versions of it. They had Munster's, they were black. They had Munster's graphics and green wheels, and one had Herman on the side and Munster's on the door, and then there was another one that had some Munster's graphics. I think it had Herman, and it was flat black and had spider webs all over it. So those you could find. Those are hard to find. I don't see those too often anymore. I had a chance to get one a while back and kind of passed it up, and I shouldn't have. But this is out currently. It was just reissued September of 2020. So it's out. Actually, I think it was for October 2020. So it's fresh out there now. But it's the Coca-Cola version. I'm pretty sure if you've been watching the new kits coming out, you've seen that one. So you could use that one. It's the same kit. Or you can use another Munster truck. You don't have to use this one. But what I'm going to show you is for this kit. And so that's what you'll have ideas for. Alright, so the modifications you're going to have to make. There really aren't hardly any you have to do to the Munster's Koach body. The interior tub has two raised lines underneath the floor on the bottom, and it's like the floor in front of right for the back seat. You have to shave those off and sand them down a little bit, and that's so the body can sit down flat on the frame, on the Munster truck frame. The rear part of the Munster truck frame is like the same width as the Munster's Koach frame, so that works out nicely. That's about it for the body. The chassis is where almost all your modifications are. The wheelbase, you don't even have to mess with the wheelbase. When I was mocking it up, the wheelbase was really just right for the Munster Koach body. So all the axles and springs, shocks, and all that will fit right where they're supposed to on this chassis. So this here is a chassis out of a kit that hasn't been built yet, because I have a couple of these. Your all your modifications are going to be, you're going to take the floor on the outside of the frame, down both sides. You're going to trim that off flush to the frame. You're going to take those tabs off. Of course, they're going to come off when you trim all this off anyway. And then this part of the floor, just under the cab area, from frame to frame and to the front of this cross member. You're going to cut all this out. Now you're going to have to carefully, because you have to move the engine further back so that it fits in the engine bay of the Munster's Koach. So you're going to have to move this cross member is for the engine mount. So you're going to have to move this cross member back to about here, where this shock perch is on the frame. So carefully cut that out so you can reuse it, glued it back in back here. What I did when I cut the floor is there is these right here. And what I did is I took a straight edge, I cut a line, I drew a line so I could leave that little strip in there. Because when you take this out and help maybe keep this from moving in and out, I left that little piece in there. Be right across, where is that? Right about, yeah, it's right about where the transfer case goes. I left a little strip in there. It just helped keep it a little bit in line while I moved that cross member back. You can probably just go ahead and cut the whole thing out. I didn't really seem to have that much of an issue with all this moving up front here. And actually, as far back as it is, this is probably going to move somewhat anyway. So yeah, just go ahead and cut this whole floor pan out right here, because with the engine moved back, this is going to be in the way right here. Now your transfer case is these two pieces, and this piece, there's two alignment pins. Yep, I think I can put it together. It's not, well, I've never done this before. There we go. So that's that piece. That the smaller piece has this cone right here. You're going to have to cut that off flush with the case. So you want to remove that whole cone right there, right up flush to the case. There we go. That cone. And there's a drive shaft that goes from the engine to the transmission, or to the engine to the transfer case. From the transmission to the transfer case, it's a little short drive shaft. It's in the instructions here. That drive shaft, you're not even going to use that. You're just going to throw that back. You're going to throw that piece back in the box. You're not going to use it. Just like the headers, you're not going to use the exhaust. You're just going to throw those. But you are going to use the engine assembly. So you need to build that. And then the transmission right here, this is a divorced, what's known as a divorced transfer case. Well, we're going to remarry it back to the transmission by getting rid of that drive shaft. And it works out just perfect. So this goes, there we go, let me get this here. So you got the chassis, you got the transfer case, the little piece that glues on the front, that faces forward, and you can see the grooves there, I think. There we go, get some shell. See those, there's some grooves right there. The transfer case slides in those grooves. Okay, and with that cone right there gone, the transmission can butt right up against that. Now the transmission cross member that glues in is supposed to go in those little pockets on each side, like that. Okay, but you're not going to do that. With that trimmed off. This is going to come up and go right up against the transfer case. So you're just going to move this cross member back up against the transfer case, and your engine cross member, you're going to cut that out very carefully because you're going to have to reuse it, and you're going to move it back to right about there. Like I say, you're going to want to mock this up together before you commit to actually gluing it into where it needs to go, to make sure it's right where you need it in the engine bay of the Munster Koach. So that's pretty much that part. The top of the frame, I used some styrene sheet and cut a couple of some strips and glued them from here to build this up on each side, so that basically this frame level, the top of the frame, you want to continue that even all the way back to here, because that's how the body's going to sit on the front part. The floor pan and stuff of the body is going to sit on that. And then here on the frame rail, because you're going to see that because there's no hood on it, I just took some putty, modeling putty, and filled that, and cleaned it up and shape it, do a nice job on it. And this you don't really have to worry about. I did mine. I filled mine across here. But if you really want to make it really nice and clean, you can. You're really not going to see much of that. You're probably going to have to trim a little bit of this up, because there's a front apron on the body that's going to, where it turns, the very front lip turns down a little, it's going to go right along there, almost into that groove. And then the bumper is going to cover this. And let me show you the pan I'm talking about, the apron on the body. Pick this up without breaking it. It's old, like me. Alright, this is the front apron, and it kind of curves down right there. And if you can see that, let me get up close here. There's that groove I was talking about. You see how it's just on the back edge of that groove. And you might have to do a little bit of trimming on the frame right in here, and maybe over here where because the headlight, there's some tabs here that these headlights mount to. And you may have to do just a little bit of finessing just to make sure it fits like it needs to on the frame, so that this all fits down nicely. And that's pretty much it for that part. You see on the back of the body, let's see here, I filled this here, but the body, let's see, the shadows are right here, kind of fits, I hope you can see that. There's a bit of a notch in the back of the body here, so it sits down onto the frame nice, and the body comes down over the frame on the rear. When you get up towards the front, where the frame is just a little bit lower, it sits right on the frame on the very front right here on the firewall. Now this piece here, that's this area right here. So that is a rectangle piece that I cut out of the same styrene stock and just glued on the top there, and it makes just a nice little cargo platform or whatever you want it to be. You could even build a little dog box to go back here for Grandpa Munster when he turned himself into a wolf. You could put him in the dog box for when they go camping. Remember the camping trip? I don't know if you ever watched the Munsters. And Grandpa turned himself into a wolf and was running around the woods. They could have kept him in his dog box here, and they'd be kind of like a bunch of rednecks out there with their hunting dogs. Use Grandpa for a hunting dog. The tail light is from the Munster kit. I just mounted it to the frame. And let me see if there's anything else to this I need to tell you about. The wheels. These inner parts, the center parts here, those are chrome, but these are painted. rim itself is painted, and the wheel backs, they're painted. I used the Krylon original chrome. That's what I used to paint the wheels. The cap shows it being really chrome. It doesn't really dry quite that chromy, but you can see it does make it look kind of like polished aluminum, and that was the look I was going for. You can paint yours a color, whatever you want. I did mine in that, but if in case you want to duplicate that, that's what I used to do that. And about the only other modification, if I can recall, is the front bumper. I narrowed it. I'll show you the stock bumper. As you can tell, move this back here, you can see the stock bumper is quite a bit wider. And I wanted to narrow it down because I thought, well, you know, that big old wide bumper like that, you can tell, if you can see there, would look kind of awkward. So I narrowed it down. What I did is as you can see, I just removed these driving lights on each side. You can see where's the bend right here. I cut it there on each side, and then on the ends, you can see this here. See that there's a line molded in right there. I started cutting it. That was my first cut, was right there. And actually that's the cut that you can see on the bumper that I did. You cut right in that line right there. Now you put it straight, you can just put it straight back on there, and this bumper, you can tell, is a little straighter on the ends. And mine, I angled it a little more. So you can see that in the diamond plate that goes on there. You can see where the diamond plate's a lot straighter. Hold that there. You see the angle difference. The center is all left alone, so all you got to do is trim the ends of this to fit what you do here. Now on mine, you can probably see my line. There it is. That line on each side. See, mine's on a little bit of an angle instead of being straight. Being a 90 degree, it's kind of got an angle to it. And then the bumper end, I had to kind of trim it a little bit here to get the angle I needed. So this, when I brought that in, I left it there, and I kind of did an angle through here, not changing this cut at all, just kind of trimming it here. There you go. And that's how I got that bumper. And if you're real careful with the chrome, you can glue it all back together like I did. Trim this piece just the way you need it, back where it needs to be, whether you go straight, like almost like it is there. It's got a slight angle to it. I made mine just a little bit more angle. If you're careful with the chrome, you can glue it back together, and you won't have to touch anything up. At the time when I built this model 6 years ago, we didn't have the Molotov pens yet. At least I never knew about them yet. And so you could touch some of those, any nicks or anything that you got with that, and probably not really notice it. I was just real careful with mine and glued it back together so it would look good. And if there's something else that I did, I can't think of it right now. That was 6 years ago I built this, so there might be some little teeny tiny detail I'm forgetting. But other than that, the chassis is just the Munster Truck chassis, pretty much as it is. The engine, you build the engine just as it is. I kind of painted these kind of the wrong color red, trying to look like K&N filters. Other than that, the Munster Koach headers, exhaust headers, I just kind of stuck them in and glued them, hooked them up to the motor. You can't really see how they connect in there very well. And I mean, if you want to be technical about it, they're spaced wrong, because the Munster Koach had a Ford engine in it, and this is a small block Chevy engine, and the exhaust ports are different. The Ford ports are all evenly spaced, and the Chevrolet, the two center ports are right next to each other. So that's kind of wrong, but you know what? If I didn't point it out to you, most people would probably never noticed. So there, I just gave myself away. Alright, that's basically it. So if you want to build one of these, that's all you got to do. Or you can just use these ideas for some other idea you have. Best thing to do though is take whatever you want to make a monster truck out of. Start with that 4x4 chassis. If you don't want to scratch build one, this is the way to go. Just set your body up. If the wheelbase is right, you're all set to go. All you might have to do is move the engine a little bit or whatever. It's pretty easy. You seen what I did. The drive shafts are the same. You get rid of the short one, and that's it. If you like this one, I've got a Dragula that I did, another monster truck. It's like I mentioned earlier that I used the Dragula also. So I have a little monster truck in it. It will have basically kind of the same thing. That chassis, if I recall, had a lot more modifications to it. It was the USA 1 monster truck, but I used a different scale because it worked out better. But I'll do that video and I'll show you all of that one. So that's it for this one. Hope you liked it. If you did, hopefully you'll subscribe, come back, see some more of these. And thanks for watching. And until next time, catch you later.